A lot of people start the year enthusiastically by making overly optimistic New Year's resolutions, but when the end of the year comes, they come to the realization that they have met none of their goals. On the one end of the spectrum, we're caught up in the euphoria of starting a new year, which signifies a new beginning, by making New Year resolutions, often without much thought, because that is the easy part. But at the end of the year, we often have to sit with the disappointment that we have met none of our resolutions, which is really hard to come to terms with. So in this video, I will show you a 5-step framework that will not only help you make realistic New Year's resolutions, but that will help you make resolutions that you'll actually achieve. Starting with step number 1, which is to map out your own life. This is where you pan out and have a holistic view of your whole life, sort of like an aerial view, to figure out where you are and where you want to go. This is important so that we don't willy-nilly make up New Year's resolutions just because we're caught up in trends or we're influenced by those people who are around us, who we look up to, but that we have an honest conversation and review of where our life is and where we want it to go. This step is important because it helps us to make resolutions that are within reason. For example, if you want a promotion or a new job, this is where you look at the requirements of that job and the requisite experience and ask ourselves whether it is realistic to obtain all the necessary qualifications and education within the next 12-month period to enable us to even apply for those posts. If you want to go to the gym, we should be asking ourselves if physical activity is any part of our lives currently. Like the popular saying goes, you have to walk before you can run. The bigger the goals, the more intimidated we become, or the less prepared we are, the more we're going to make excuses. In my personal experience, I find that doing something completely new or foreign can often be too jarring and too intimidating to complete within 12 months, but something that is within reach, that is already a part of your life in one way or another, is much more comforting, and you find motivation much more easier to complete those goals. For example, if you're a musical person, learning an instrument will be much more easier than someone who's not interested in music at all. So map out your own life, figure out where you are, and what is it that is reasonable to achieve within the next 12 months. Step number 2 is to write down your resolutions. Honestly, you do not take anything seriously if you do not take it seriously enough to write it down. When we think about things, we're more likely to forget them until we record them somewhere. Like the saying goes, out of sight, out of mind. Writing is also an act of commitment, and there really is no format around this. You can use pen and paper, a journal, your notes app on your phone, whatever it is that makes you comfortable to write down and record your goals so that you're aware of them and can go over them at a later stage. And that will help to hold us accountable to our goals. Writing is also a good way to visualize our goals so that they're present in our minds. If you're a creative person, you can even use a vision board to write down your New Year's resolutions so that you can constantly go over them and remind yourself what you set out to achieve at the beginning of the year. We're all different, so some will prefer a much more visually appealing method and some will just want to keep it simple. But what I would recommend is that after you write it down, put it somewhere where you can constantly see it, so you can constantly remind yourself of what your goals for the year are. Now we'll move on to the third step, which is to simplify your resolutions. Often in the writing process, we can get carried away with writing every little detail down, which will deter us from what we're trying to do. We're trying to keep this simple so that we find it much easier to approach them and regularly progress ourselves into achieving them. So keep your list simple. Resist the urge to write every thought that comes to your brain. Filter your thoughts, write down the simple stuff. The important thing about simplifying your goals is that as we simplify them and we start with the goals that are much easier or quicker to achieve, and as we go through our list, the dopamine effect of checking things off our list will only motivate us to want to do more. The difficult stuff that are hard to do, because they have a lot of resistance, can often be discouraging. So resist the urge to write everything that comes to your mind and write only those things that are important and that are feasible to achieve within a 12-month period. Honestly, you'll thank yourself later when you realize just how easy and practical it is to check off those goals off your list if you make them into simple, small, actionable steps. So simplify your goals and it'll be a much more easier path to achieving them. By the way, if you're finding value in this video so far, please consider sticking around by clicking the subscribe button and liking this video so YouTube can recommend it to other like-minded viewers. Thank you very much. Now moving on to step 4, which is to track your progress. The other big reason we don't achieve our resolutions, besides actually starting to do the work, is that we don't have a way to track our progress. And as human beings, we are prone to forgetting. Writing down is an act of commitment, but we need a tracking system that will help hold us accountable towards reaching our goal. As soon as the year begins, our ordinary lives catch up with us. We often have to go back to work or go back to school, and parents are drawn back into the routine of taking care care of their children. So when we have written down our goals, we can then design a system that will allow us to track our goals as we progress throughout the year. There really is no set format around tracking our goals, but what I recommend is to have weekly or monthly or even quarterly reviews so that we can see where we are and see the effort that is needed towards achieving our goals or towards making the progress to achieve our goals come the end of the year. Tracking our progress is really important because it will refocus our minds towards our goals and it will help hold us accountable to the promises we made to ourselves at the beginning of the year. It will give us clarity of thought on the effort that we need to make towards achieving our goals. Tracking our progress is also important because it will give us the extra motivation that comes from checking off our list as we go through the steps that are taking us towards our goals. So after you've written down your goals and broken them down into small, actionable and practical steps, you need to design a tracking system to check in with yourself and hold yourself accountable towards reaching your goals. And the last step in this 5-step framework is give yourself permission to start. The most intimidating thing is taking the first step. Often when we allow ourselves to take the first step, we find it much easier to commit ourselves throughout the rest of the process. The one thing that can often discourage us from even starting is imposter syndrome. And I want to let you know that imposter syndrome is a lie. You can do this. You need to hold yourself gently and accept the reality of making mistakes along the way. And because you have a tracking system in place, be confident in the systems you've set in place to hold you accountable towards the goal that you've made at the beginning of the year. New Year goals and resolutions are about starting and learning new things. And this can really be intimidating. So what I find works for me is to avoid having strict deadlines. I think of the time spent achieving my New Year goals in windows rather than with strict deadlines. That way, I know that I'm not under extreme pressure to start when everybody does, but I also know that I have a certain period or window within which to complete a certain task. And that gives me the free will to do the thing without feeling the pressure of a hard deadline. This may work differently for others because other people are actually motivated by having strict deadlines, while others are intimidated by having to achieve something by a specific date. It is also important to know that it is okay to change our minds about certain goals we may have had at the beginning of the year but have grown over time when we do our monthly and quarterly reviews. It is okay to change our minds and leave those things that we're no longer interested in doing. As human beings, we're not static, we're constantly growing, and that means we will outgrow certain things. And because we make New Year goals and resolutions at the beginning of the year, we're often influenced by what other people think and what we see online. And as we sit with ourselves throughout the year, we're faced with the reality of what we really want. So it's okay to delete those things that no longer serve you and only keep the things that will continue moving you forward. The New Year resolutions do not have to be set in stone. You can swap them around as often as you want to as you become much more honest and practical about what you can realistically achieve throughout the year. So all throughout this process, remember to hold yourself gently as you try and learn new things and work your way towards realistically and reliably achieving your New Year goals. And if reading is a goal you have for the new year, please click on the video linked on the screen where I give you practical tips to read more consistently, whether as a beginner or even as a busy person working full-time or going to school full-time. So click on the video linked on the screen and I will see you there.